Today we're going to be talking about absolute value of numbers. We have 3 learning targets. Number 1, I can recognize and use the notation for absolute value. So the absolute value symbol, as we'll see, it's like this, 2 vertical lines surrounding a number. I can find the absolute values of rational numbers. And 3, I can explain what the absolute value of a number is. So our whole discussion today is going to be on this new idea of absolute value. So for our first activity, it says for each pair of expressions, decide mentally which one has a value that is closer to 0. So for each of these, there's 4 different questions, each with 2 numbers. And we're thinking about distance from 0. So once again, to kind of orient us, we have a number line down here. A lot of these numbers are fractions and decimals. So for the most part, these numbers are actually below 1, with the exception of this problem. So which one would be closer to 0? 1/4 or 3/4? 1/4 would be closer to 0. And the reason why we're closer to 0, because it's smaller. When talking about positive numbers, the smaller the number, the closer it is to 0. So 1/4 would be about here, and 3/4 would be about here, a little closer to 1. So using that same logic, 1/5 or 1/9, 1/9 would be closer for the same reason, because it's smaller than 1/5. 1 25/100 and 5/4. Well, I know 5/4 as an improper, or that's an improper fraction, is a mixed number. That would be 1 1/4 or 1 1/4. And I also know that 25/100 is also 1/4. So these are actually equivalent numbers here. So they would be an equal distance from 0. And for 100th and 1,000th, 1,000th would be closer. Once again, for the same reason as listed above, because it is smaller. And when we're talking about positive numbers, the smaller the positive number, the closer it is to 0, the less far it goes over. So that's just a little warm-up. Now let's talk about this jumping flea, okay? So for this activity, I think it would be really beneficial if you pause the video right now and try and answer as many questions as you can on this sheet independently, and then resume the video to check your work. So, if a flea is jumping around on a number line, and if the flea starts at 1 and jumps 4 units to the right, where does it end up? And how far away from 0 is this? So the flea is starting at 1 and goes 1, 2, 3, 4 units to the right. And where is that? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1 plus 4 equals 5. So where does it end up? On 5. And how far away from 0 is this? It would be 5 spaces from 0. And one important thing that I want you to know is that moving to the right equals addition. Okay. Now, if the flea starts at 1 and jumps 4 units to the left, where does it end up? How far away from 0 is this? So it's at 1, and it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is -1, -2, -3. So 1 minus 4 equals -3. And so that's where it would end up. And how far away from 0 is this? Well, -3 is 1, 2, 3 units from 0. So once again, moving left is subtraction, right? The negative numbers are to the left of the number line, and the positive numbers are to the right. So if the flea starts at 0 and jumps 3 units away, what 2 places might it land? So if I'm at 0 and go 3 units to the right, 1, 2, 3, so it could land at 3. Or if it started at 0 and moved 1, 2, 3 units to the left, it could land at -3. So 3 and -3 are both 3 units away from 0. If the flea jumps 7 units and lands at 0, where could it have started? Okay, so if the flea's jumping 7 units, so I could imagine 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It could start at 7 and go back 7 spaces, or it could start at -7 and jump to the right 7 spaces. So the flea could have started at -7 or 7 if it jumped 7 spaces and landed at 0. So now here is where that definition of absolute value is coming in. The absolute value of a number is the distance it is from 0. So the flea is currently to the left of 0, and the absolute value of its location is 4. Where on the number line is it? So it's to the left, and it says its absolute value is 4. So if it's to the left, I know it's negative, and if it's 4 units away, it must be at -4. So where on the number line is it? It's at -4. And to show that as absolute value, as mentioned at the beginning of the lesson, this is your absolute value symbol, which is always saying how many units away is this number. So how many units away from 0 is -4? It is 4 units away. If the flea is to the left of 0 and the absolute value of its location is 5, where on the number line is it? So once again, it's to the left of 0, and it's 5 units away. So the flea must be at -5. Because the absolute value of -5, how far away is -5 from 0? Is 5 units away. If the flea is to the right of 0 and the absolute value of its location is 2 5/10, where on the number line is it? So it's to the right, and just like before, they were to the left. So now, to the right, that means positive. And if it's to the right of 0, 2.5 units, then it's at 2.5 on the number line. And the absolute value of 2.5, or 2 5/10, is 2 5/10. So we use the notation. So once again, here's that absolute value notation to say the absolute value of -2. So anytime you see these little vertical lines surrounding a number, that's how you read it. You need to say the absolute value in front of it. So this would not read as -2. When you see this, you say the absolute value of -2. And that always means the distance of -2 from 0 on the number line. So this is not saying what is -2. This is saying what is the distance of -2 from 0. So what does the absolute value of -7 mean? And what is its value? It means what is the distance of -7 from 0. That's what this is asking. Anytime you see the absolute value symbol, absolute value notation, you should be asking yourself, what is the distance of this number from 0? What is the distance of this number from 0? What is the distance of this number from 0? And so, -7, how many units away from 0 is it? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It is 7 units away from 0 to the left. So the absolute value of -7 is 7. It is That's what that's saying. So how far away is negative 7 from 0? 7. So once again, with 1 8/10, what is the distance of 1 8/10 from 0? And it would be 1 8/10 from 0. And because it's positive, it would be to the right. So whenever you're working with absolute value, you may have noticed your answer is always going to be positive, right? Whether you're asking about the absolute value of a negative number or a positive number, your answer is always positive, because all you're asking about is its distance from 0. So whether you're negative, you're 5 units to the left, or if it's a positive 5, you're 5 units to the right. Either way, the number of units of distance away you are will always be a positive number. And you'll also have noticed that, obviously, whatever the number is in the bracket, that's how far away that number is from 0, to the left or to the right.